Hello and welcome. My name is Marc Kosciejew, and I am the head of department and lecturer in Library and Information and Archive Sciences in the Faculty of Media and Knowledge Sciences at the University of Malta. I would like to thank you for attending and viewing my presentation today, and I would like to thank the organizers and the other participants of this year's Around the World Conference on Libraries, Archives, and Public Life. In this presentation, I want to argue for the enduring importance of libraries, specifically public libraries. So in this presentation, I will include a discussion of the overall importance and need for public libraries, some of the challenges confronting them today, and a framework in which to help raise awareness of their important contributions to communities, cultures, education, economies, and democracy. So to begin, the enduring importance of the public library. Public libraries are important and vital public places. They are one of the few truly public places remaining that provide free and open spaces and opportunities for educational and intellectual nourishment, creative and cultural promotion, communal and social engagement, and economic development. The public library remains one of the last truly public places belonging to all, where a person is not a consumer, but instead a citizen, free from the commercial constraints and political pressures that define many other areas and aspects of contemporary life. Public libraries provide free access to diverse kinds and formats of information, and in so doing, help strengthen democratic principles and practices, including freedom of assembly, speech, and the press. The public library is a public place where people can freely access and use information, learn, research, connect, network, and socialize. It is a public place where people can strengthen their educational achievements and engage in lifelong and infinite learning. It is a public place where people can acquire and refine literacy competencies and skills. It is a public place where culture is displayed, preserved, and promoted. Public libraries further present non-judgmental spaces for individuals and groups to educate, enjoy, and explore their particular personal and communal interests and needs. Indeed, public libraries are unique social institutions that deserve our collective attention and our collective defense. As many people may feel increasingly isolated, the public library offers an antidote to isolation by virtue of its status as a community and information hub that supports a common purpose of connection, communication, and contribution. Recently, the UK's Department for Culture, Media and Sport commissioned a study measuring which activities make people happy. For respondents, going to the library was one of their top activities inducing joy. According to this study, engagement with the public library can provide people with the same uplift as a £1,300 pay rise, or an additional pay increase of £113 per person per month. Similarly, according to recent research by the Pew Research Center, 91% of Americans say that their local public library is important to their communities, whilst 3 out of every 4 Americans say that the public library is important to them and their families. Further, the overwhelming majority of Americans, 90%, believe that their communities would be negatively impacted if their public library was reduced or shuttered. Yet, sadly, the public library is challenged on numerous fronts, including uninformed claims that the internet and information communication technologies are usurping its purpose, harmful financial reductions under the merciless banner of austerity, and general growing public apathy and neglect. These challenges have direct impacts on its operations, services, and resources, resulting in more limited features and offerings that in turn exacerbate these same challenges. It is a vicious cycle corroding the public library's figurative and literal standing. This vicious cycle must be broken. This vicious cycle must be broken if community and culture matter, if education and literacy matter, if inclusion and democracy matter, if we matter. If we turn our back on the public library, we turn our back on community, culture, education, literacy, learning, democracy, and ultimately we turn our back on ourselves. The public library is not being usurped by the internet or other information communication technologies. On the contrary, the public library is more important today than ever because of its commitment to providing free, equitable, and open access to diverse kinds and formats of information. Popular online search engines like Google or Bing are private corporations using proprietary computer algorithms that manipulate information and search results, privileging websites and services that pay to be featured prominently in lists of results to search queries. The public library's philosophy and practice is the exact opposite: to make information freely available and accessible in equitable, open, and neutral ways in order to cultivate communities and culture instead of generating profits. The public library also faces the challenge of financial assault for austerity's sake. Even in more prosperous times, the public library usually struggles with perennially flat and ever-diminishing finances. These paltry finances directly impact the resources and services that it provides. Reducing an already meager budget will only exacerbate current operational, resource, and service challenges that are themselves results of previous and ongoing financial reductions. If we continue to gut the public library, it is we who are ultimately gutted. The public library is also confronting the challenge of a general growing apathy and neglect. Some people argue that they can get all the information that they need online, and indeed, there is much information available online. However, much of that information online is problematic in that it is proprietary and is of often questionable quality. Some people believe that Google's results can meet all of their information needs. But unlike Google and other search engines, various smartphone or tablet apps, and other online information services, the public library belongs to everyone in order to help enrich their community, instead of enriching a private company with narrow, commercial, and profit-driven interests. While much of the internet is devoted to consumerism and private enterprise, the public library is devoted to develop the citizen and the community. But it's important to note that today, that this contemporary era is not the first to seemingly turn its back or begin to turn its back on the public library. The Roman Empire boasted an impressive public library system that gradually declined and disappeared in large part because of apathy and neglect, and of course the budget cuts and financial strains that accompany them. It is no coincidence that the death of the Roman Empire's public library system coincided with the ancient civilization's eventual demise, and coupled with the emergence of the so-called Dark Ages, where education, literacy, culture, and an informed citizenry became long-forgotten ideals. History repeats itself. It would be an epic tragedy if we wittingly or unwittingly followed the Roman Empire's sad example. We are at a critical juncture in which the future of the public library hangs in the balance. The illusions of online information, financial reductions, and apparent apathy must be urgently and forcefully addressed. People must be reminded that the public library is an essential information and community hub that exists to nurture their communities and culture, not for commercial reasons, but for civic, educational, and democratic reasons. So I present a framework to help us raise awareness of these important and enduring contributions to communities, cultures, education, economies, and democracy. Because unfortunately, public libraries are increasingly overlooked as key community and public places. It appears fashionable, for example, to disdainfully dismiss or undermine their importance for local communities, cultures, and economies, and to exaggerate uninformed claims of their impending demise, particularly in times of financial constraints and the seemingly digital usurpation of their main mission of providing information. Admittedly, There may be some operational problems or service issues that generate frustration for both library users and staff, coupled with flat or ever-diminishing budgets that further constrain library operations, services, and collections. These problems, these issues warrant criticism. But these problems and these issues do not justify sweeping declarations and the resulting misinformed argument that these public institutions, that these public places should therefore be further reduced or even shuttered. Instead, these problems and issues and other constraints must be promptly addressed and resolved in order to help restore public interest, correct misunderstandings, and ensure their long-term health and continuation of their beneficial contributions to the lives of individuals and communities. So, it is useful to situate the significance of public libraries within a framework of their contributions to communities, cultures, education, economies, and democracy, in order to begin raising needed awareness that can help deal with some of these problems and issues and other constraints. These contributions are not mutually exclusive. Instead, they are symbiotic, informing and influencing each other in a complex matrix that makes public libraries significant for both individuals and communities. First, public libraries contribute to community development. These public institutions are a unique public place for social engagement that offer, for example, free and open access to diverse kinds and formats of information, free spaces for assembly and debate, and various opportunities for individual reflection, research, and leisure. Public libraries are cornerstones of an ever-diminishing public sphere where people can meet and mingle outside of their homes and workplaces and significantly free from commercial, financial, political, or ideological pressures that seemingly permeate most parts of our lives and societies. These public institutions may in fact be the last truly public places left that help foster and develop their communities outside of the self-interested realms of business or politics. Second, public libraries contribute to cultural and educational development. They collect, organize, manage, preserve, and make accessible and available the cultural capital of their community and indeed of humanity. They are a cultural place that make freely and openly available different ideas, viewpoints, philosophies, stories, myths, poems, reports, and facts. This cultural accessibility and availability encourages and nourishes creativity and intellectual activity that leads to the creation and extension of more culture. Public libraries also provide a place for education, where anyone can engage in study and research in order to increase their education, which of course does not end after the completion of one's schooling, however basic or advanced. Public libraries provide a place for education that can energize people's imagination and allow them to discover new perspectives and new possibilities for their own self-discovery. They are also places of reading, where literacy, in all of its stripes, reading, digital, technological, and of course other kinds of information literacy, is taught and advanced. Public libraries are therefore not just about information, they are about understanding oneself, one's community, and the larger world around them. Third, public libraries contribute to economic development. They provide a place where local businesses and entrepreneurs can access information and engage in research in order to help strengthen their businesses. They provide a place for individuals to search and apply for employment and benefits, especially for those people who may not have access to computers or the internet at home. Public libraries can also improve their community's reputation and attract visitors who could visit the surrounding businesses and neighborhoods. For example, many North American cities have, over the past decade and a half, constructed or refurbished libraries in order to help improve their flagging downtown and other commercial districts. Fourth, public libraries contribute to democratic development. They provide a place of open and free information that gives equal access to every citizen. In this so-called age of information, public libraries are a great equalizer that establishes an equitable and just information playing field for all. Public libraries, by extension, support and promote some of the bedrock principles of democracy, such as the freedom to read, the freedom of ideas, the freedom of communication, the freedom of expression, the freedom of assembly, and the freedom of the press. Public libraries are unique public places and useful developers of community, culture, education, the economy, and democracy. Because public libraries preserve and make accessible and available knowledge, encourage literacy, and add to cultural capital while supporting the economy and advancing democratic practices, they should be recognized as central to our very humanity. As the acclaimed writer Neil Gaiman declares, and I quote, "We have an obligation to support libraries, to use libraries, to encourage others to use libraries, to protest the closure of libraries. If you do not value libraries, then you do not value information or culture or wisdom. You are silencing the voices of the past, and you are damaging the future." The public library must be protected and supported, not reduced, not closed, in order to provide the many important resources and services that it must fulfill and deliver if we permit it. We should expect more, not less, from the public library in this information age of the internet, increasing amounts and kinds of information, and diverse information communications technologies. We must recognize the public library as a place for community, education, literacy, democracy, and culture. But we cannot expect more from the public library if we continue to be apathetic and allow its gradual erosion on various fronts. The public library deserves our collective attention and our collective defense. If we believe in it, support it, and defend it, the public library in return believes, defends, and supports us by helping strengthen a high quality of life for our collective personal, cultural, and educational well-being. So in conclusion, I argue that it is time to defend and it is time to reclaim public libraries for both our public and personal lives. Indeed, the very concept and reality of the public library promises us a better life. It is therefore through the public library that we can reaffirm that we matter. Thank you.